So, long division of polynomials. Before we do this, let's see if you remember how to do, let's take, say I want to do the number 718 and I want to divide it by, oh, I don't know, how about 11? Do you remember how to do that with long division? If you've forgotten, remember you kind of make that kind of shape? And what number goes on the outside? 11 goes on the outside, and then 718 goes on the inside. Go ahead and see if you can remember the steps.
Wait, did that say 71.8?
No, 718, sorry. 718 divided by 11. Go ahead and try and do it by long division. Do you remember the steps? Hey. Yes, yeah. Yep. Yeah, bye. You have an answer?
65.3.
65.3 I'm hearing. Well, let's go through our steps and see how we did. So, what I do to start off is I ask myself how many times 11 can go into 7. It can't, so then I go to a 2-digit number, right? So how many whole times does 11 go into 71? 6. So you put the 6 up top. You remember this? And then you did 6 times 11, and you got 66. And then what did you do? You subtract. 71 minus the 66 leaves me with what, 5? And then what'd you do? Then you bring down the 8. And then you kind of repeat the process. How many whole times does 11 go into 58? 5. So you put a 5 up top. Then you did 5 times 11, you got 55. You subtracted, you got a 3. And then it depended on what grade you were in. Because at this point, you might stop and say 65. And remember putting the R for remainder? R3 or remainder of 3. Or you could have kept going into decimals. You would have added a 0.0 and then kept the system going, right? If you were in the elementary grade, wherever you did decimals. We are not going to go into decimals with polynomials, luckily, but I am going to deal with a remainder. Are you aware that the remainder, so this means that if I take 718 and I divide it by 11, it goes in 65 whole times with 3 left over. So can I write my answer as 65 and 3/11ths? You can, yes. So I just take whatever my remainder is and I put it over whatever I was dividing by. So there is my final answer, 65 and 3/11ths, which means the same thing as 65 with a remainder of 3. Okay? So that's basically, we're going to follow those exact same steps with polynomials, believe it or not. It just is a little weird at first, but your algorithm is pretty much the same. Okay, so a couple things that you need to keep in mind when you are dividing polynomials. So let's call these helpful hints. Your polynomials have to be in standard form. So if it doesn't start with the highest exponent and then work its way down, you have to rewrite them. Okay? So first, make sure polynomials are in standard form. And that goes for both the divisor and the dividend. Oh, wait. Divisor and... Yeah, divisor and dividend, and then the answer is the quotient. I always get them mixed up. So, for example... Well, maybe we'll... Is there one on this worksheet? No, but oh, there is. Okay, we'll do an example in a few minutes. Okay, so you want to make sure your polynomials are in standard form. And then there is this other weird thing that you always have to check for. And if you don't check for it, everything kind of gets messed up. So this is super important. Whatever your highest exponent is, let's say it's x to the third, you need every degree below it represented. So, if what I mean is, let's see if I can find one quickly. Three, two, one. Ah, perfect. If I'm looking at number 14 right here. See how I have m to the third, then I have m squared, but I don't have an m to the first. See how that's not there? I'd have to put in what we call a zero placeholder. So I'd have to rewrite this one as m to the third plus 6m squared, and then I literally write plus 0m plus 1. And you'll see why you need that in a minute. Okay, but whatever my highest exponent is, I need everybody accounted for all the way down. Okay, so make sure that you get into the habit of checking for that right away. Most of the time you don't need it because usually there's one for everybody, but if something's missing, you gotta put it in. Okay, so I'm going to write under helpful hints, use a zero placeholder for any missing degrees. So once you have done those two things, you're pretty much ready to go ahead and set up your long division. Okay? So let's go ahead and try number... Oh, I hate when I do this. I wrote on the front of one sheet and then on the back of another. Now I've used 2 pieces of paper. Tisket a tasker. Let's do number, we'll start off pretty easy. How about number 9. Number 9 looks great. So I'll recopy number 9 right here. N to the third minus 4n squared minus 3n plus 13. And I'm going to divide that by n minus 3. So first, I want to look and make sure that they're both written in standard form. This one, 3, 2, 1, none. Yep, and they're all in order. This one just has n minus 3, so that one's fine. Am I missing any degrees? No, they're all there. 3, 2, 1, and you also have to have none. So if I didn't have like a plus number on the end, I'd have to put a plus 0. But they're all there. Same thing over here, they're all there. Okay, great. So then just like when I did long division with numbers up here, I'm going to do it the same way. So whatever I'm dividing by is going to go on the outside, and then my polynomial is going to go on the inside there. So make sure that you've got some space underneath wherever you put this. You're going to have n minus 3 on the outside, and then in there, n to the third minus 4n squared minus 3n plus 13. Just like with numbers. This is going to feel a little weird at first until you get the hang of it, but then once you get the hang of it, it's actually kind of fun, I think. Okay, you ready? Everybody ready? Long division, polynomials, here we go. So here's how you figure out your first number. You're going to take your first term, which in this case is n, and I just ask myself, what do I need to multiply n by to get n to the third? n squared, right? So I'm going to put n squared up at the top. Now, here's what you want to keep in mind. Everything in this column will be an n to the third. Everything here will be an n squared. Here will be n's, and here will be just numbers. So when I put the n squared, I want to make sure that I put it in the n squared column, because I need everything to line up, otherwise it's not going to work out. So once I have the number on top, what do you do with it? Remember, in math and just numbers, once I figured out it was a 6, what did I do with that 6? You got to multiply first, right? So I did 6 times 11, got 66, and then I subtracted. I'm doing the exact same thing. I'm going to do n squared times the whole thing out here, and I'm going to write it underneath. So n squared times n gets me n to the third, and n squared times negative 3 would be a negative 3n squared. Do you agree so far? And notice how I wrote them in the correct columns. N to the thirds, n squareds, and so on. So make sure you're keeping it nice and neat here. So once you multiply, then what do we do? Subtract. Now here is, if you're going to make a mistake, it's usually right here. You need to subtract this whole line. So you need to subtract this and this. So now that means, I'm actually going to switch colors. That means it's going to be a minus n to the third, and then won't that turn into a plus? Right? Because it's negative, so if I minus the negative, now it's a plus 3n squared. Do you see that? Now, look what happens. N to the third minus n to the third, that first term will always cancel out. Always. If it hasn't canceled out, you've done something wrong. And now, negative 4n squared plus 3n squared would leave me with what? Negative n squared, correct. And then, what did you do when it was numbers? What was the next thing? Exactly, you bring down the next number. So in this case, I'm going to bring down negative 3n. And then I'm basically repeating the process over again. I ask myself, what do you multiply n by to get negative n squared? Negative n, so that goes up at the top in the n column. And then I'm going to multiply. So, what? Be real careful with your signs. So negative n times n would get me negative n squared, so I write it in the n squared column. And then negative n times negative 3 would get me positive 3n. But then you got to subtract that whole line, right? So now this is going to turn into a plus, and now this has to turn into a minus. I don't recommend, a lot of times kids will do this. They need to turn a plus into a minus, so they do this. That does not help you. You're still going to think it's a plus. I literally cross the whole thing off and I rewrite it as a minus. Otherwise, you're just going to glance at it and you're going to think it's a plus. So now, negative n squared plus n squared, again, I'm telling you, every time. Math is so awesome. It like self-checks you as you go. So if those first two things don't cancel out, you've done something wrong. And now, what's negative 3n minus 3n? Negative 6n. And then I just keep going. I have one more thing to bring down, plus 13. So, what am I going to put at the top now? Negative 6, exactly. Because I'm asking myself.
The negative 3.
What was that?
You just ignored the negative 3.
Yeah. I'm asking myself, what do I multiply n by to get negative 6n? The answer was a negative 6, so negative 6 goes up at the top. And then I do negative 6 times what's out in front. So negative 6n and then a plus 18, right? Oops, sorry. But then you gotta subtract both of these. So this now turns into a plus, and this now will become a minus. Those first things cancel just like they should. Negative 6n plus 6n is gone. Positive 13 and negative 8. Negative 5. I'm done now because there's nothing left for me to bring down. So that's just my remainder of a negative 5. So how are we going to write it? You're just going to write it as plus whatever my remainder is, negative 5 over whatever you were dividing by, n plus or n minus 3. And this whole thing right here is my answer. So when you divide that original crazy polynomial by this binomial, that's what comes out. So it's not particularly hard, it's just weird to get used to. But if you're stuck, I'm telling you, go back and just pick any two numbers and divide them, and you remember how to do it, hopefully. Let me just ask this question. Is there anybody that does not do long division like this? You don't? So do you have any idea what I'm doing?
I just flipped the box.
Flip the box.
Yeah, it's
What are you talking about? What do you mean flip the box?
It's not Spain now.
yeah, it's the European thing.
Flip the box.
Hey, Ryan.
But you're doing the same steps, it's just
Yeah.
presented different. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, yeah, I've never. Oh boy, flip the box. Interesting. Okay, so let's try another one. Let's see how we can do with this. So, are we okay so far? I'm seeing a handful of people not paying attention to me. So, when we're going to try these later, and you all of a sudden want help, my patience is going to run real thin. Let's try another one. Okay. Where's my paper here? Let's try, do you want to try 10 on your own? Or are you not ready yet? Try 10. It's just like 9. See what you can do with that. It has all the pieces that you need. So just see if you can work your way through number 10. And I will get it set up over here. You got it? I have no idea what the answer is. But why don't you tell me yours?
N squared plus 2n minus 3 and negative 4 over n minus 1.
Did anybody else get that same thing? You did?
I'm two over
Okay. Well, let's try it. So I'm multiplying. I gotta ask myself, what do you multiply n by to get n to the third? That'd be n squared. So n squared goes up top. I'm gonna multiply n to the third minus n squared. However, you need to subtract that whole line. So you're now a minus and you turn into a plus. Those first terms cancel just like they're supposed to. N squared plus n squared gets me 2n squared. Bring down the negative 5n. Repeat the process. N times what to get 2n squared? Positive 2n, right? Multiply 2n squared minus 2n. However, don't forget to subtract. So now you're a minus and you turn into a plus. First terms cancel just like they're supposed to. Negative 5n plus 2n leaves me with negative 3n, and I bring down the minus 1. What's going to go up top? Negative 3. Negative 3 times n is negative 3n. Negative 3 times negative 1 is a positive 3. But you must subtract them both. So this turns into a plus. This now becomes a minus. Negative 3n plus 3n is gone. Negative 1 and negative 3 get me negative 4. So I agree. There's a correct answer right there. So, do we get the gist? So, let's try a tougher one. Something like 19. Let's actually do 15. That one has just as many terms, but what must you do in 15? Yeah, you have to put it in order first. Otherwise, nothing's going to work. It's going to be all messed up. So let's take a minute and get 15 in order, and then we can go ahead and try it. And you want both of your numbers to be in order. So even that negative 1 plus n, you wouldn't want to rewrite that as n minus 1. Everybody should be in standard form. Don't forget to be checking for 0 placeholders. Do I need a 0 placeholder here? No, I don't. But you got to get in the habit of checking for it. 4, 3, 2, 1, none. They're all there, so we're good. But I'm telling you, you're going to hit a problem, and you're going to be halfway through it, and things are going to start to break, and you're going to be like, what's going on? It's probably because you needed a 0 placeholder, and you missed it. So make sure that you are checking. So even though this one has more terms, you still operate the same way. So go ahead and try this one out. I'll try it at the same time, and we'll all see if we end up in the same spot. When you're ready, you can check and see if you got the same thing I got. Thanks. Can't believe I haven't lost my voice yet. I shouldn't jinx myself, I guess. Okay, did you get what I got? Not so bad? I just want to do one more together and then we'll try some. If you take a look at one like 20. So this is the first one, I think, that we've done where this leading coefficient isn't just a 1. It doesn't change anything. I still just operate the same way. It's just that now there's a 3 there. So what would I multiply 3n by to get 3n cubed? N squared, right? So multiply through, I get 3n cubed minus 7n squared. Subtract the whole thing. -6. Then what? What would my next number be up top? Correct. Subtract the whole thing, so you're now plus, you're now minus. Oh, what's that? 18? Do we agree? Not so bad? No, not too bad. Once you get the hang of it, they're actually kind of fun.